Okay, gender and language. So language is often used either consciously or subconsciously to perform gender with which one identifies. And there's a sort of interesting piece of work out there that I want to share with you. Um, so in most cultures, men have deeper or lower pitched voices than women. And this is partly just due to the fact that male vocal folds are longer, the vocal tract is bigger. However, there's research that shows that in general, men's voices are even deeper than the physiological differences would predict. In other words, if it was just based on physiology, men would have lower and deeper voices, but the difference between males and females is actually bigger than that physiology can account for. And then they did some sort of course, this could either be because men have deeper voices or women have higher pitched voices, but doing further analysis, they found a correlation between how much men affiliated with sort of traditional gender roles, and those men tended to have deeper voices. So it appears that this is sort of socially motivated. Okay, geographical variation. So we already talked about this a little bit. Geographic variation can be found in almost any language. And sometimes a language can, like in some places, you can tell where a person is from, even what village a person is from, based on the way that they sound. And we've already had some examples of this in this class, so I'm just going to remind you of them. So remember, for instance, in English, in terms of back vowels, in Canadian English, all of these words, spa, box, dogs, and dog and bot, are all pronounced with the same vowel. However, in some dialects of American English, we have bought pronounced with a different vowel, that open O, which is it's a little bit higher. So that's it's a mid-back rounded vowel, and it's pronounced different than the vowel in box. And in received pronunciation, there's actually 3 different vowels represented by those 4 words. Same sort of thing happens with the words, these 3 words, Mary, Mary, and Mary, which for me, I pronounce all the same, but again, in British English, those are pronounced, all 3 are pronounced differently, and also in some varieties of American English, there's a distinction there. So we've talked about those before, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about what causes these regional differences. Well, mostly, remember, as you learned in your past historical lecture, language change happens all the time. And also, the trajectory of language change is not entirely predictable, but it happens in different ways in different places. So if you have, let's say you have a group of people and half of them move to a different country, then the people in the original country and the people in the new country, those 2 languages are going to start to diverge as each one changes in its own way. And we talked about vowel shifts, mergers, and splits in historical linguistics, but we still have these going on today. This isn't just something that happened in the past. So what I want you to do now, before you go on, this is important, it's only 3 minutes, is click on this link and go watch a video of Bill Labov, and then come back and see me in 3 minutes. Okay, so what you just saw was an explanation of the northern cities vowel shift. And just to reiterate, if you have a word like this,
sacks,
which to me sounds like sacks, like grocery sacks, but then you hear it in the sentence.
Yet it were sacks, no sandals.
You realize that the word is actually socks. And then here we have
bosses.
So it sounds like bosses to most people, but if you're in a sentence.
I can remember vaguely when we had the bosses with the antennas on the top.
It's actually buses. So this is a shift that's going on right now. It's called the Northern Cities Change Shift, and basically what's happening is A is going up, ah is moving front, ah is moving down, and is moving over there. It's moving back. So that's why buses, which should be here, is now sounding like bosses, right? And what was socks is now sounding like sacks. Okay, so what do you think about the northern city shift? Usually when I ask people, they they sort of shrug their shoulders, no strong feelings. You know, it was a nice video, nice guy, whatever. However, if you take a look at the comments, let's read some of the comments. So, Judy Garland, these are literally comments about that video you just watched. Judy Garland had a beautiful Upper Midwestern dialect, but the modern Great Lakes dialect makes my ears bleed. They need to start speaking General American. Or Tanzers, whatever, says, so it's like the common Minnesota accent, but amplified in obnoxiousness. And then we have Ron Olin, who says, black instead of block, bosses instead of buses. I grew up in Minnesota and never heard anyone sound like this. If I had, I might have killed them. Killed. Because they're pronouncing socks like sacks. It's crazy, right? I mean, not that we should be taking internet comments to be representative of society in general. I mean, we all know that's a bad idea. But this just shows that people have very strong opinions about something that seems fairly arbitrary. And also, remember, like, what's actually the difference? It's that people's tongue is in a slightly different position when they're pronouncing these vowels, right? Like, oh, I really hate when, you know, your tongue's too front when you're pronouncing ah. It's pretty ridiculous. Okay, so it's not just, so, oh, you might have noticed, by the way, that this northern city shift is happening in the States in an area very close to here, right? It's happening in the New York region and in Michigan. And so you might wonder what's happening here. And actually, there is a vowel shift going on right here in Canada. So take a look. What we have is I is being pronounced more like S, so pit is being pronounced more like pet. And as going to a and as going to ah. So is this the same thing? So is the Canadian vowel shift going in the same or different direction than the northern city shift? Well, if you look carefully, it's actually going in the opposite direction as the northern city shift. So as going to ah instead of vice versa. So even though, so maybe it's just Canada trying to differentiate from itself from the States, I don't know. But even though these are very close regionally, these are two vowel shifts that are actually going in the opposite direction.